My name is Lucas Counter, and today I'm going to be doing a presentation about urban research strategies, how to incorporate grassroots actors, underground scenes into the process of finding accessible spaces for them and incorporate them into long-term planning processes. To give a quick introduction about myself, I'm from Australia. I have worked in a number of different building projects and development projects. This is where my background is, but yeah, there's a point where I wasn't really feeling it so much, so I decided to pack my bags and go traveling through Europe. And then I wound up in Berlin. I joined a techno collective. I met some amazing people. I started my master's and I wrote my dissertation on scenes, youth culture, and this need to have accessible free space in the city. And then this really carried on into my current work now, which is in the Model Space project, where I'm a research coordinator. And now this project is quite interesting. Basically, my colleague Lisa will give you a bit more information about it, but to give you a quick overview, we've just finished writing our advice for the Berlin Senate about a fragile scene, the free open air scene. Basically, our advice looks into helping to define this scene, what is the importance of having it, the spatial characteristics that it uses space, and essentially what we're trying to do is look at ways to improve the situation where they can access space so they can begin just doing what they want to do, which is putting on open air events. A very important part for the nightlife in Berlin. So there's going to be 3 concepts I talk about today. The first one is about a model. This is really looking into sort of like underground scenes, particularly electronic music scenes, and why this accessibility to free space is important for them in their development, and how also it can be important for nighttime culture and economy. The second step is I'll go through the research process. This is something that is implementable in every city. It's really simple, 3 steps. And then the third is a tool that was developed from this research process in the Model Space project. It's a mapping tool. It was developed in cooperation with the Technical University of Berlin, and it's also something that can be implemented in any city, and it's quite interesting. So let's start with this model. So we're here today to talk about developing a nighttime economy in Tbilisi. So this model looks into this, but it really focuses on this need to have accessible free space. So if we start at the basement level here, we're talking about underground music scenes. Now, this accessible free space allows them to begin self-defining themselves. And in this process, they begin defining change targets, and this is for their future development. So, and it goes into the next step now. So the development of the scene happens when these collectors can access space. They begin to professionalize in a certain sense. And this professionalization is a key way for the development of a nighttime culture and economy. Think about event organizers. They start off non-commercial and they begin to develop their skills and keep on going forward. But the thing is that to make it sustainable, we need to work out ways to include this access to free space into urban planning processes and strategies. So thinking long-term to make it sustainable potential in nighttime economy for 5, 10, 15 years. And it's about the new generations also. Think about the new generations of organizers that need to come through. So my job is really looking into developing research methodologies and implementing strategies to work out ways to create access to this free space for these underground collectors, grassroots organizers, etc. So the formula, as I said, 3 steps. This is a formula for research processes to include grassroots actors from the very start. This is an important part, and it's about including them in there to also create ways to enhance their ability to access space. So we have, in the first step, defining the scene. So this is all about, we need to work out the needs and uses of space, how they use space. The zones of conflict that arise. Think about organizers who use sound systems in a space, residential neighbors nearby. There's going to be conflicts. And also defining an explicit change target. So this is what needs to happen, what needs to change. Maybe it has to do with a law or a particular administration process. And then this change target is used in the second step, which is customizing an action plan. So this is where you start developing research methodologies and strategies to be able to find a solution to this change target. Usually this change target is about trying to enhance the access to space. Also, it's good to have university corporations involved. So think about, getting master students also to be part of the data collection process. And then we also have local cooperation partners. It's important to have them in. We need to use them to also fuel the dialogue, the political dialogue, because, okay, and then the third step is conducting a scientific study. So there's 3 aims really that you need to be including when you're doing this study. One is restoring trust between scene and state. Why? The scene doesn't trust the government, and the government doesn't necessarily trust the scene. The next tool is the next point is about, an aim should be to develop new tools. Think about long-term strategies and how these tools can help. I will go a little bit further into a tool that we developed, this mapping tool, but also as part of the steps is formulated an advice for future direction. This should be included after this study. So, this mapping tool, what kind of a tool? The aim is to connect the definition of the scene, how they use space, the areas that arise conflicts with spatial planning maps, and the aim is to find accessible free space which they can use, and to, Now there's 3 steps to this. One is defining spatial parameters per the needs of the scene and city. Second is generating a processing map and scanning the city. And the third is pre-selecting and evaluating potential spaces. So I'll go into more detail now about those 3 steps and give you some case study. Okay, so the first one, we have this definition of the scene that we've uncovered. Now the aim here is to connect this with spatial planning maps that are from the city development departments. Every urban planning, the city of Tbilisi would have one also. So it's connecting these characteristics of the scene with particular maps and mapping layers. Then the second step is to create a processing system. So this is an image of a geographic information system. And basically it has all these layers in there. And these layers each represent a different color. And what you're trying to do is find patterns of these colors that fit the definition of the scene, how they use space, and this criteria that you develop to reduce conflicts. Then the third step is, to begin evaluating these spaces that you found. So the GIS mapping data gives a lot of information. You can see here, this is, for instance, a space that we, this red dot here, this is a space that we analyzed for open air events. Now the land use plan is a layer that you can use. It gives you an outline of where all the different types of surrounding land uses are. And this one here is showing the population density. So there's different ranges per the color. Now, this is one part of the analysis. Also, it's important to on-site inspection, so check it out yourself. The property ownership status is always important. It can be a deal breaker in the negotiation process. Sometimes publicly owned land is easy to get a hold of than privately owned land. And also look into the future and surrounding development plans. So basically, I thought that yesterday the presentation was quite interesting, where there was this map of Tbilisi and it showed all the brownfield spaces, starting from the north and going through the center of the city all throughout to the northwest. So I think that if you wanted to set up a quick action plan with the incorporation of universities and the scene to find these sort of spaces, I think a good starting point would be to begin defining these definitions of the scene, and then to use this mapping tool and place it over this map of all the brownfield spaces and begin selecting a certain percentage of what is appropriate for a long-term use. Then, I think this is what could be a project that incorporates universities. And it's actually something that, like myself and my team, we're going to Vienna directly after this conference, and we're going to be doing this workshop with master students there. So we're going to be working with them, with the cultural actors in the scene that is there, with universities, and we're going to be initiating sort of projects like this to find what explicit change targets and start working together. So I think that's also something for Tbilisi. Maybe there's some people here from universities, some students, we could have a chat afterwards. But yeah, this is really my presentation. If anyone has any questions, you're free to ask. Clear? Cool. Thank you.